The past year has been particularly brutal in terms of escalating crime, violence, thefts, robberies, murders, shootings. It's been getting really, really bad in most major cities. You'd think because of this, people would start to vote for more moderate candidates, maybe not outright Republicans, but at least moderates, district attorneys who will actually prosecute the rioters and the criminals. I bring you now to Philadelphia, where the other day we learned that's not true. The people like the high crime and they like the failed policies that lead to high crime, and it will likely only get worse because of it. A progressive was running against a moderate in a Democratic primary. Many thought it was going to be a close race. The moderate wanted to be tough on crime. The moderate lost by 30 points. Amazing. The people of Philadelphia, witnessing a surge in violent crime, said to themselves, we need more of this. Because the progressive DA, who's a defender of Black Lives Matter and Occupy Wall Street, a staunch leftist, had been elected in 2017. You'd think the people would say, enough. Well, maybe the problem is people like me. You see, I didn't live in Philadelphia, but people like me because I lived in the suburbs of Philadelphia up until a few months ago. We were just across the river on the New Jersey side, so I wouldn't be voting in a Philadelphia race anyway. Well, I left. And I left because, partly, the surging crime, the riots, it was out of control. I remember witnessing the riots thinking they would never cross the bridge. And you may have heard me tell the story. They did. I heard the helicopters and the sirens near my home in the suburbs. And the media kept saying the rioters won't come to your house. They won't come to the suburbs. They did. People were kind of freaked out by it. And I realized the people were voting in more of this after witnessing everything that happened. They decided they want to live this way. And I said, okay. Well, I don't. And if this is what this community wants, far be it from me to tell them how to live. And so I left. I'm sure there are many other people who lived in Philadelphia who felt the same way and said, I'm going to get out of the city because it's really bad. And thus, there's no one to vote in the moderates to fix the city. It seems like a cascade effect. Across the country, these cities are going to continually get worse because what happens is you get surging crime because of the failed far left policies and progressive policies. And then that causes moderates to leave, which then gives progressives a stranglehold over these elections. You also have to contend with the fact that they are very powerful leftist interests dumping tons of money into these races. And that's why I've always been a staunch advocate for somehow figuring out a way to get money out of politics. I don't know if it's possible, but I've long said I don't like the fact that millionaires and billionaires are flooding our local elections, trying to take away our rights, making everything worse. And that's what's happening in many of these cities. It's a shame, unfortunately, because now what you're left with is a police department that will claim to neutrally enforce the law, but the district attorney is a far leftist. So you know that means when the sorting algorithm occurs, the neutral officer saying, I'm going to arrest you for committing a crime. Standing before the DA will be two individuals, a conservative and a far leftist. The far leftist burned a building down, threw a brick through a window. The conservative refused to wear a mask or some other ridiculous policy, even though I know the mask thing's basically coming to an end. And the DA is going to say, well, it was a peaceful protest and, we get it. So you're free to go, leftist and conservative. How dare you defy our edict? To jail with ye. That's what's been happening. Stories out of Minnesota of a woman opening her cafe, getting arrested. They go down to Iowa. They arrest her and say, it shouldn't have gone this far. You're under arrest, ma'am, for how dare you serve coffee? Then you get Brooklyn Center, which is basically part of Minneapolis. And they're like, you win, Black Lives Matter extremists who have terrorized the city for the past year. We're going to reform the police and create an unarmed civilian enforcement division. I can only tell you this. Argue what you want about the police. The people in these cities want the crime and violence. Now, I know you may be saying, Tim, they really don't. They say they don't. But my friends, actions speak louder than words. So if the people keep voting for this, they clearly want it. Let me show you what's going on. Surging violent crime, and they continually choose more of this. It's about time you woke up and to realize these cities want the violence. And I got other examples. Now, I'll briefly mention, because I got another story. Over in France, the police are protesting, demanding the government take action to deal with these social problems. Let's read this story. And before we do, head over to timcast.com, click that big members only button, and sign up to become a member. In the event that I get suspended, purged, strike, whatever, you can go to timcast.com and find my content there. But becoming a member helps make sure that in the event any of that happens, I'll be able to continue doing my work. As you know, there are many people who have already been purged. Crowder, of course, he's gotten 2 strikes, so he's sitting on a suspension on YouTube. But when you become a member, you also get access to an exclusive members-only area with tons of content. And we are in the process of greenlighting more shows, more programs, and creating a network of a ton of awesome stuff. We got the vlog, of course. Now we've got a couple new shows that have been pitched to us that we're planning on funding. It's going to be great. So please go to timcast.com, become a member. But don't forget to like this video, subscribe to this channel. And the best thing you can do, take that URL, share this video on your social media. It's the most powerful thing you can do. Let's read the story from the Daily Caller. They say, after a surge in violent crime, progressives win big in Pennsylvania's largest cities. I would have appreciated if they put an LY at the end of big so they can say win bigly in Pennsylvania's largest city. The Daily Caller reports progressive candidates were victorious in Philadelphia and Pittsburgh's Democratic primaries Tuesday night, winning races by wide margins after a year-long surge in violent crime. Let me just briefly mention, for those that may have missed it, what I'm saying is these are the soft on crime candidates. These are the candidates who say that we should have cashless bail, which I don't completely disagree with, but they're the candidates who say we're not going to prosecute these crimes. These are the candidates we see out of Chicago who let Jussie Smollett go. They say in Philadelphia, progressive district attorney Larry Krasner cruised to a second term, beating moderate police-backed primary challenger Carlos Vega by 30 points, even as multiple reports pointed to a potentially close race. In Pittsburgh, progressive state rep Red Ed Gainey ousted incumbent Mayor Bill Peduto by approximately 7 points, making him poised to be the first black mayor in the city's history. Krasner, who was first elected in 2017 on a platform of criminal justice reform, told supporters Tuesday that he'd kept his promises to focus on crime within the city. This time they put us back in office for what we have done, he said, according to the Philadelphia Inquirer. Not ideas, not promises, but realities. Realities of surging crime? Look at this. His reelection, however, was tested by Philadelphia's spike in shootings throughout 2020. The city suffered over 2,200 shootings last year, nearly 500 of which were fatal. The city also suffered a series of riots in late October after police fatally shot a black man wielding a knife, resulting in a deployment of the National Guard. So around then I realized the riots are only going to get worse. They can't deal with the crime, and it's probably better to get away from the big cities. So I did. But I want to point something out very, very important to you. Carlos Vega, who lost by 30 points, was backed by the police. I can respect the police for wanting a moderate, but that means these police officers are now going to be serving and servicing a district attorney who doesn't like them, but they're going to arrest you anyway. They're going to make you stand before a man who would see you rot in jail for some ridiculous nonsense crime. Oh, you did be running his business, selling coffee. But the riots that have plagued the city, the violent crime, apparently that's not a big deal. We're going to have more reform. We're going to go soft on crime at a time when crime is skyrocketing. I don't like the idea of tough on crime or soft on crime. I think those are stupid. What we need is appropriate reforms. I can only tell you this. Clearly, the reforms they're doing are not working. And these officers, these are the officers that would gleefully arrest you for nonsense. They would arrest you for expressing your Second Amendment right, exercising your Second Amendment right. And they would also arrest a rioter. And then the DA is going to throw you in jail and let the rioter go. So you can't support these cops anymore. When the political institutions are fully progressive and they're going to target you as a moderate, as a disaffected liberal, as a conservative, you need to stop supporting the police. Now, you'll say it's not the police's fault. The politicians are doing this, perhaps, but I'm not going to support the enforcers of the far left. You know, they don't really want to abolish the police. They want to seize them. And now they have the power. That's what's happening. They say, in his victory speech, Krasner rejected the notion that his policies had led to the crime increases and instead called for additional funding for crime prevention measures. That mandate has rejected definitively a politics of fear that is built on falsehoods. We have to invest in crime prevention measures because we were robbed of them a long time ago. And what we are facing now is consequences. In Pittsburgh, Peduto conceded to Gainey shortly before 10:30 p.m., wishing him well and thanking city residents for trusting him for the past 8 years. Gainey centered his campaign around making Pittsburgh a better city for all its residents, especially residents of color. Tuesday's election was also the first since a report found that quality of life for black residents was worse in Pittsburgh than almost every other major American city. He also campaigned on demilitarizing the city's police force, banning no-knock warrants, and redirecting funding towards community policing methods. One person can't change a city, Gainey said, according to the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. A city is changed with all of us. A city is changed when we all come together to improve the quality of life for everybody. That's why I ran for mayor, because I believe we can have a city for all. Like Philadelphia, Pittsburgh also saw homicides jump in 2020. The city suffered 51 killings last year, nearly a 40% increase from 2019, though the spike followed a nearly 2-decade decline. So perhaps it isn't entirely the policies. If we're seeing other cities that didn't have the progressive just won, then maybe. But I can certainly say that it is Democrats who run these cities where we are seeing the major surge in crime. And when you look to many Republican areas, you don't see the same thing. I know the left doesn't want to admit it. I went through the data when we tracked the top cities for violent crime, and you can see San Diego, which was run by a Republican or had a Republican mayor, didn't see the same level of crime. It's about time you realize what's going to be happening with more far-left politicians taking over. I think I've already made it clear. The cops can be neutral, but the left is celebrating these political victories because it's giving them power over the police. Now, the police might say, I'm not going to follow you. I'm just going to follow the law as it's written. And then what do you get? The other day we heard the Supreme Court ruled unanimously. The police can't seize your guns without a warrant. That's right. Cops went into a guy's home under the guise of a wellness checkup without a warrant and seized his guns. Why would the police do this? But the police certainly are defending the rights. You got to back the blue. Nah, not those criminals who broke into a guy's house without a warrant and stole his stuff. Here we go. Common Dreams loves it. This is a leftist activist website. They say landslide endorsement of criminal justice reform as Krasner blows out police-backed primary challenger. I tell you this. Okay, maybe it's a bit hyperbolic when they say they want the surge in crime. Perhaps. It is. But maybe they just hate police so much they'd rather have the crime. Or maybe actions speak louder than words. You know, I give you the example of these people wanting the crime in these cities when you have this woman shoot another woman in the head and it doesn't become national news. That happened in New York only a few weeks ago. No Black Lives Matter protests, no Ben Crump, no mock-up of here's how it happened, no demand for justice reform to make sure these crimes stop. They don't care when these stories erupt about violent crime. They do care when the cops do it. So what I am saying, maybe on the surface you can say they just hate cops. But when you look at the specific examples of extremist crime and they don't protest it, they clearly don't care. They clearly want someone who's going to come in and point at the cops, not the crime. There you go. Let's go back in time to 2017. Meet the DA candidate who's defended Black Lives Matter and Occupy in court. Larry Krasner was a defense attorney for years. Now he wants to change the system from within. Oh, and he is. This is the problem with politics. You've got a city in chaos. Experts, pandemic continues to fuel surge in shootings and homicide in Philly from February. Oh, the pandemic, because you can prove that, right? I'm willing to concede that it plays a role. The pandemic absolutely played a role. I've talked about it quite a bit. But also that these lax policies from progressives has also played a very serious role. They'll disarm the law-abiding citizen. The laws they often pass target those who abide by the law and not the criminals. And then there you go. Crime skyrockets. We have this story from Fox 29, this one from May 4th. Philadelphia police seeing disturbing increase in violent crime against women. Here's one. Philly's rise in homicide is bad, but in many other cities, it's even worse. I love that one. Philadelphia ranked 23rd out of 34 American cities in homicide rates increase from 2019 to 2020, according to the final report by the National Commission on COVID and Criminal Justice. Midwestern cities saw much of the greatest annual increase. And now we can see the ramifications. Take a look at this. The story out of North Carolina, Elizabeth City, is that these officers who shot and killed a man named Andrew Brown will not be charged. Andy No reports Black Lives Matter protesters show up to the home of the former deputy police chief in Elizabeth City, North Carolina, to oppose the DA's decision to not bring charges against deputies who were almost run over by a drug dealer. They call the people at the home racist. The home of the former deputy police chief, I'm assuming these are the actual people, but I think he's saying maybe the people who live there aren't the people in question. Do you want to see what these DAs are doing and what you can expect next? Maybe you want to come to me and they'll say, Tim's not being forthright. This is crime. These DAs are going to prosecute crime. There are Antifa people who have been charged. That's right. When they set fire to police stations or government buildings, they do get charged. Here's a story from a month ago, The Guardian. Most charges against George Floyd protesters dropped, analysis shows. Some prosecutors and law enforcement observers say departments carried out mass arrests as crowd control tactic. Perhaps, but the charges are going to get dropped. The New York Times. Why charges against protesters are being dismissed by the thousands. Prosecutors declined to pursue many of these cases because they concluded the protesters were exercising their basic civil rights. Or is it that they agree with the protesters? Remember that story recently? We saw that a man admitted to assaulting an officer. His charges were dropped. Right around the time that Joe Biden got inaugurated, the federal attorneys in the Pacific Northwest started dropping charges against people who even admitted to committing the crimes they committed. Some of these people are on video committing these crimes, and they were let go. So here's what freaks me out. If you read the news, they're lying to you. Seems like the system is being dismantled from within, and there's not a whole lot we can do it because stupid people vote for other stupid people, and the system just continues to decay. They defund the police. They take away the police ability to deal with crime. Crime skyrockets. They blame the police for the crime, and then everything falls apart. And then the spineless jellyfish officers who stay on the force just enforce the illegal acts and unconstitutional orders and edict from these politicians. Prosecutors declined to pursue many of the cases because they concluded the protesters were exercising their basic civil rights to what? Punch a cop in the face and throw a firebomb at a building? We've got videos out of Portland of them throwing Molotov cocktails at cops. Is that the way you want to live? Not me, so I leave. But it's very simple, I think. Take a look at this story from Newsweek. This is from February 25th, 2021. Mark Ruffalo demands BLM protest charges be dropped, prosecutors be fired. And that's the reality. They know that the right-wing individuals are not going to go and punch them in the face and harass them. I mean, take a look at the story I covered earlier, which for those listening on the podcast, you'll hear in a bit. There were some Jewish men sitting at a table in Los Angeles planning for a wedding when a pro-Palestinian group yelled out and asked who was Jewish. When they said they were, the men jumped out of their cars, according to several reports, started beating the men. It's on video. The police are investigating as a potential hate crime right now. Do you have the stories of Jewish people in Los Angeles hunting down Palestinians? No. Now, you can talk about Israel where something like that did happen, but I'm talking about in the United States when it comes to the leftist causes versus the right-wing causes. Are there Trump supporters marching through major cities with assault rifles right now, locking down the streets and attacking people? No. Are there right-wing groups marching through certain cities? Periodically. You know, Patriot Prayer and the Proud Boys. It happens. Do they have weapons? Sometimes. Do they get into fights with people? Yeah, but usually only the far left. Okay. Does the far left march around unprovoked with rifles? Yes, they're allowed to. But then do they block streets illegally and smash out car windows and attack people? Yeah, they did that. That's right. Do they shut down highways? Yeah, they do that too. So they're committing crimes. Are they denying science? Yeah, they're doing that when it comes to biological sex. Are they denying the election results? Well, many of them said Russia, so yeah. And that's what you get. People believe it because the media panders to them. The news organizations needed to choose a side because clearly there's a hard split and they want to figure out where they could make their bread and butter. Well, massive corporations are beholden to their shareholders and to their bottom line. Individuals are not so much. So who do you trust? Major corporate news entities who are telling you what you want to hear to make money, causing you to vote for policies that destroy your communities, or individuals who are telling you what they think and not beholden to any corporate shareholders or profits? It's amazing. It's amazing to me that many of these leftist activists say, like, you know, Tim Pool's a grifter, or Crowder's a grifter, or Brett Weinstein's a grifter, you know, because they're just trying to make money. And I'm like, corporations, you trust them? You think they're the ones telling you the truth? Apparently. They think, well, you know, CNN, they have to tell the truth. Why? No, they have to make money. So they give you reality TV garbage. You get these actors and these virtue signalers, and they come out and they make demands. And these prosecutors and these people know that if they refuse, they'll be beaten. Then you get dumb people who don't pay attention, who vote for this stuff. Oh, you got to vote Democrat. You got to vote Democrat. I mean, you equally have people saying you got to vote Republican. They vote for people like Mitch McConnell, which is also bad. But this is what you can expect more of. Crime will likely keep going up. The reforms are not going to produce what they think they're going to produce. Take a look at Minneapolis. Have the reforms helped? No, you've got an autonomous zone where people are shooting each other like crazy. Crime is skyrocketing across the board. And it's likely only going to get worse. Now, what's interesting about this is that the other day we were talking to Ryan Gerdusky of, he's a writer. We had him on the Tim Casarro podcast. And he mentioned that a lot of this funding is coming from the likes of billionaire George Soros. It's not a conspiracy theory. Don't take my word for it. I pulled up the LA Times. They say, in this one race, they say, here are the mega donors and police unions pouring millions into the LA County District Attorney's race. Spending in the race intensified a few weeks before Election Day when New York billionaire George Soros and Bay Area philanthropist Patty Quillen combined to put millions of dollars behind Gascon. Quillen's husband, Netflix CEO Reed Hastings, has also helped Gascon maintain a commanding fundraiser lead over Lacey, who has support from law enforcement unions up and down the state. Well, there you go. Interestingly, the black woman, Jackie Lacey, who was supported by cops, was $7 million raised, whereas Gascon, $12.4 million. Take a look at this. Percentage of total donations. 53% for Gascon was from wealthy individuals. Granted, Lacey's 72% was from law enforcement unions. Gascon mostly got his money from rich people. The Association for LA Deputy Sheriffs contributed $1.3 million, the top donor. We go down to Gascon, George Soros, $2.2 million, and Patty Quillen, $1.6 million. Then another wealthy individual, Elizabeth D. Simmons, $785,000. Reed Hastings, $500,000. All of the ultra rich are funding these people. The ultra rich are watching the system get gutted. I wonder why. Do you guys see that big Bitcoin tank? Talked about it earlier this morning. For those listening on the podcast, you'll hear about it in a minute. Amazing. The rich people are scamming you to strip you of your wealth. They're the elites. It's elitism. That's what they do. They take from you and they trick you into doing things. And it's really funny. The left are saying, oh, Donald Trump has tricked these people into giving up their wealth. That's sad, really. He didn't. Donald Trump, for all of his problems and a lot that he should be criticized for, was trying to make the economy better. In 2019, we saw the best numbers of our lives. So saith Jim Cramer, if you trust that guy. Now we're in inflation, a massive border crisis, escalating conflict in the Middle East. Prices are skyrocketing, shortages of food. People are starting to panic buy everything. That's under Joe Biden. I understand that under Donald Trump, COVID was bad, but I can't blame Trump for the pandemic. I can blame Joe Biden for his failed economic policies. But this is it. The rich people, the Democrats, the party of the wealthy, convinced these people to vote against their own interests. And here we are. Here we are. It's going to get worse. And that's why I've been saying, I would say mostly jokingly, but somewhat seriously, abolish the police. Screw it. Why? Why do I care? I have the right to keep and bear arms. If there's no cops, no one's going to stop me from defending myself. And I moved out to the middle of nowhere. Stop defending these big cities that are on fire because these people keep voting for these progressives. Stop defending these cities that are run by Democrats and burned to the ground. Figuratively, of course. The cops need to start standing up for themselves and saying no. And many have been quitting, but too many bad cops are joining the force. These rookies who are like, now's my chance to be a bad cop. These are the ultimate butt-sniffing bootlickers. These cops who are like, I'm going to join when everything's worse. It's getting bad for everybody. I'd be willing to bet on many of them. Many of these guys are woke, and they're going to do everything in their power to defend Antifa. So stop defending them because they will eventually turn and come for you. Check out this story from France. Thousands of French police protest and call for more protection. We're not France. I get it. But people in France have been complaining about critical race theory, and many former generals were saying they're very close to a civil war. The New York Times says the protesters declared that police work has become increasingly dangerous because of the government's failure to fix the country's social problems. Declaring that their work has become dangerous because of that, many protested. Police union leaders demanded tougher laws for violence against officers and stiffer sentences against convicted criminals as thousands massed in the rain in front of the National Assembly, issuing warnings to political leaders who were present but were not invited to speak. Your presence is an important sign. Fabien Van Hemmelrich, the Secretary General of Alliance Police, a right-leaning union whose members appeared to dominate the protest, said from a stage next to a giant screen, "It must not be a sign of future elections, but a wake-up call, a sense of responsibility, of change and a return to safety." Now, some people have said to me, Tim, in these cities like Minneapolis, the cops just aren't responding anymore, so they may as well have quit. No. They're not responding to the Black Lives Matter calls. They're not responding to certain neighborhoods where they could get charged and convicted like Chauvin did, but they will respond in 2 seconds to your home if you try and defend yourself. So no, I will not support these police or back the blue right now. The political institutions have been taken over by woke extremists. The police have been arresting people simply defending themselves on too many occasions, and the police themselves, who throw their hat in with the corrupt politicians, get eaten alive by the woke left, like this Kim Potter woman in Minneapolis, in Brooklyn Center. She accidentally shoots Dante Wright, and now she's arrested and charged with manslaughter. And people are like, that shouldn't be, you should defend her. No, hold on. Progressives win these races. The cities go far left. The police throw their hat in with those individuals, and you want me to defend them? It is not going to happen. Before the election, you bet. Now, look at Philadelphia. Not only did these people vote for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and the rest of these Democrats who supported the riots, they're still supporting the progressive DAs. I will not defend these cops who are licking the feet of the corrupt politicians. Licking the feet of people like Bill de Blasio. Sorry, you want to be a cop right now in one of these cities? I will not support you. In fact, I will say y'all should be fired outright. But hey, too bad. People don't operate on principle. These cops in New York who will enforce illegal actions by the mayor, they're not even laws. Bill de Blasio basically stole money from the taxpayer to paint Black Lives Matter. And these cops are like, I'll do whatever you say because I'm a loser. Little jellyfish cops. That's what they want. The good cops are quitting, and they're quitting in large numbers, and the bad cops are sticking around. And so there they are in New York saying, I don't care. I'll do whatever they say for money. And it's going to keep getting worse. That's why I'm like, all right, give it. Abolish the cops. Let it happen. The left wants to abolish the police. The worst thing you can do is resist. You know why? They're playing tug of war with you. They're going to get you to that point where you think you've just about won. No, we can't abolish the police, but they're going to weaken the institution. The good cops are already quitting en masse and have been for some time. And what's left is going to be the woke police. Once there's a massive, I'll tell you, all the good cops quit. The police then begs, oh no, we need police, like Minneapolis is doing right now. And then, surprise, surprise, these woke city council members who voted to abolish the police now vote for more funding. Why? They've purged the department of their political enemies. And now is an opportunity for them to bring in the corrupt and crooked cops who have no scruples and no principles and will do whatever they are told. Here we go, baby. It's going to happen, and it's going to keep getting worse. At least the cops in France are willing to stand up for themselves. Well, there's something else that's happening, too. The political division is leading to interesting things. I can't pull up the article, but that the St. Louis couple, the McCloskeys, one of them, is going to be running for the Senate. Good. We have laws. In Missouri, you're supposed to have castle doctrine. Yet when these Black Lives Matter extremists went to the home of these individuals and broke on a private property, who got arrested? It was the McCloskeys. Why? They were on their own property because they were brandishing. So what? It's their property. They have a right to defend themselves. Don't break onto people's property. People said, no, but they didn't even go on they were on the sidewalk. The sidewalk was in private property. And the report about the community they entered, they said that it was private property, I think a local government official, so it was akin to them being in their living room. But they still got charged because that's where we're headed. The police showed up, the spineless jellyfish crooked cops, and seized the weapons of the McCloskeys and arrested them. And you know what was the funniest thing? The spineless losers, the McCloskeys, actually defended the cops. You are pathetic. Let me throw it over to Atlas Jim. I remember we had the dude from Atlas Jim. He's a cool guy. But I'm sorry. I got no problem saying it. It was pathetic when y'all defended the police who were arrested that guy and shutting everything down. It is pathetic to defend those who enforce unconstitutional edict. And that's why you lose. Because the woke have no problem breaking the rules and lying to everybody to gain power. And the conservatives just say, thank you, officer, for doing your job. Nope, they're just doing their job. I'm grateful to you, officer, violating my rights. So while the conservatives consider to lick the boots and sniff the butts of the crooked cops who are working for the crooked politicians, the left doesn't even care they're winning. They still scream. So at a certain point, we just go, what, full far left? Yeah, that's probably where we're headed. But so be it, I guess. If people will not stand up for themselves, that's what's going to happen. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 8 p.m. over at youtube.com/TimCastIRL. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all next time.